actually, when I just got in the surgery, they gave me all this scar away cream, but I've never used it because I was like, these are so special to me. It's also a huge privilege to be able to showcase your scars because in a lot of areas, it's not safe to do so. So because I'm in New York City where I can show off my scars and a safe environment to do so, I absolutely want to. I've always considered my top surgery scars to be like, I just feel like it completed me.
Okay, so you are an actor, you're an artist, you are a model, and you are an activist.
Yes. Yes.
And so you are my dream guest for this show.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
So happy to have you here.
Thank you for having me.
And so I wanted to first talk about your activism,
Okay.
and for you to tell me which are the spaces that you feel like you are an activist most in.
That's a good question. I feel like it's hard to categorize it. I typically just say I'm constantly fighting for queer disabled rights because I feel like this is what I know most about and have taken the time to educate myself on.
And for those who don't know, what is your disability?
My disability is I am deaf. And I have 2 cochlear implants, which means when I have them in, I can hear somewhat, but this doesn't mean I can hear 100% everything. And when I take them out, I can't hear anything, which I like to do sometimes. And it's honestly really nice to be able to choose when you want to hear and when you can't, especially if there's like a screaming baby behind you on an airplane.
Oh, wow!
Or if you're like taking a test, like it's just like nice.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I can imagine.
Yeah.
I mean, I actually don't have to imagine because I was deaf as a child.
This is true.
So I do,
Yes.
I remember.
And you identify hard of hearing, right?
I identify as hard of hearing, but I think less so than I think you would. Although in the next couple of years, I'll probably have to have a hearing aid. I was almost completely deaf as a child, and then I would have an operation and then lose my hearing, and then have an operation and then lose my hearing. And I had 7 operations in total.
Gotcha. Yes.
Until I was about 12,
Okay.
when I finally had an operation that has lasted 22 years now.
Wait, so
where
what is
I-
the operation called?
That I don't know what it's called,
Okay.
and they hadn't done many of them at the time, but I just know that they basically made me kind of a synthetic eardrum.
Right.
I was only a kid at the time, so I
Yeah.
don't remember. I was also couldn't hear the conversations around it, but I
Right.
just know that they basically made me a synthetic eardrum. So tell me about your journey, first of all, with deafness. So
Okay.
how old were you when you stopped being able to hear?
Okay, so I was born presumably hearing, or I had very good hearing. I wasn't tested like after I was born, which is now a law, but wasn't when I was born. And when I was about 4 years old, I was experiencing tinnitus, which is that ringing in your ears. And I would tell my parents.
Sometimes it can be ringing, and for some people it can be like a loud pumping noise.
Oh, right, yes, with
Because you can hear your own heartbeat. Yeah, that's the one I had.
Yeah.
So it sounded like there was an army outside my bedroom
Yeah.
every single night.
I'm glad I had the ringing rather than the army.
I mean, they're both pretty shit.
Yeah, this is true.
Okay, so you had tinnitus.
I had tinnitus, and I still do sometimes, but when I was about 4 is when my parents took me into the audiologist, and I was diagnosed as having a progressive hearing loss. And this is why I can speak very clearly the way I can now, because I didn't start losing my hearing until I was about 4, or at least that's when the medical industry became aware of it. So growing up, I experimented with hearing aids, FM systems, CART, which is where, I don't know if you know, like people like live caption, just all of these different devices my family is hearing. So they were also trying to navigate the controversy between the deaf and hearing world about whether or not you should bring in hearing aids or, you know, electronic devices to help me hear, or if I should just go to a deaf school and learn sign language. That would have been very hard, especially with my family, because that would mean I'd have to kind of be shipped off and live somewhere else, and my mom didn't want to let go of me, you know? So it was a lot of hearing aids for me. And when I was in 3rd grade, my mom actually had a teacher come to my house to teach me ASL. But if you have any background in learning a language, you need to be immersed in it rather than just like weekly lessons.
Exactly.
There's no way you can learn. Like,
And most of the world don't know it.
right.
And so my way of navigating it was to become very good at lip reading.
Yes.
which
Same here.
is, yeah, and we were talking about the fact that that's still something that I rely on a lot of the time is lip reading, and I Sometimes people try and kiss me because
Yeah.
I've been looking at their mouths
Yes.
so long that they think that it's because that's also a sign that someone wants to kiss you. So
Right,
they keep
yeah.
staring at your mouth.
Yeah,
The first
yeah.
time we met, we were just staring at each other.
I know.
We met at a really loud fashion party.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
And anyone who would have seen us would have thought we're just about to bang.
Right. This is not false.
We were just having such an innocent conversation.
Yeah. That's something you definitely have to deal with.
I think that's why I dropped British Sign Language very early, is because there's no point, no one knows it, and it was
Right.
just easier for me to watch people speak, which is also super helpful when people are talking about you
Right.
from far away.
This is true. Do you use that a lot?
Yeah, of course I do.
Yeah.
Of course I do.
Have you
I'm an
ever seen, like-
actress on set. Like, I need to see what people are saying.
That's true.
Yeah.
Honestly, I think it's really interesting. Like, I feel like as a deaf or hard of hearing person, you have to devote people more time and energy, which is exhausting on our part, but it makes you really in tune to other people and other people's emotions. I feel
Yes.
like subconsciously it can actually make you more empathetic over time.
I'm more observant.
Right.
I can read so much about a person without having to listen to what it is that they have to say, and that's made
Right.
me feel very protected.
Yeah, I
Because
agree.
people give a lot away with their body language,
Yes.
with their facial expressions.
Which is perfect for acting because I feel like you can then utilize all that you've learned about them.
Mm-hmm.
I feel like that's why I never expected to be an actor, but I feel like I'm able to do it easily because I've just like subconsciously or consciously analyzed just like body language all the time.
Not
The
just an
way-
actor, you're an actor in the DC universe.
Yes. Yeah.
Amazing.
Thank you.
Tell me who you play.
I play Jericho, who is on the Titans.
Mm-hmm.
He is not deaf, but he doesn't speak. He's nonverbal and uses sign language for that reason.
Great.
Yeah.
I love that. I love that you're doing that. That's so inspiring for so many kids. I wish that I'd had you to look up to when I was a young deaf child.
Oh, thank
in the
you.
DC universe. I think it's so cool. You're breaking so many boundaries for so many different people in
Thank
the world
you.
in a way that I think is incredibly inspiring. Because you identify as transgender.
Yes.
You are genderqueer.
Mm-hmm.
You are hard of hearing.
Mhm.
Or would
Well,
I say
or
deaf?
deaf, yeah.
Deaf. You are deaf. And you are out here talking about it really openly.
Yeah.
You talk about it on social media. You're also in a relationship with Mary
Mary V.
V.
Yes. Yes.
And I love the way that the two of you use your relationship as a way to teach other people about, can we call it like an interdeaf relationship?
yeah,
She
I don't
has-
know. Yeah, we need
She
a
can-
word
yeah,
actually.
she can hear without aids,
Yeah, she's completely hearing
and you are deaf,
Right.
and you navigate those spaces together openly in a way that I've even learned a lot about in my own relationship. So
Yeah.
thank you for that.
Of course.
Okay, wait. So you got cochlear implants
Yeah.
at what age?
I was 12 when I got this, 14 when I got this, then it failed sadly, so then I had to get it again when I was 16.
Okay, and how is your life now, even though you can hear more than some deaf people?
It is a constant navigational process. I think I'm continuously learning how to advocate for myself in certain situations, as we were just ranting about before. It can be very exhausting. Like, as you have to lip read so much, it falls on your shoulders to advocate for yourself, you know, especially when 95 of the people surrounding me are hearing, so they don't really completely understand. But, you know, I feel like day by day I'm getting better at advocating for myself and explaining what I need. Like, for example, usually when I walk into an interview like this with a hearing person, I'm like, just so you know, I'm deaf. As long as I can see your lips and it's quiet, we should be good, you know?
What would you say are the biggest struggles as a deaf person in a predominantly hearing world?
The exhaustion is one of the biggest struggles.
What is exhausting?
It's exhausting when you go out, especially in a group, in an environment that's very loud and noisy, such as a restaurant or a club, and it's possibly dark, and you just have to lip read everyone, and you don't know who's speaking where. Another thing about having cochlear implants is I can't tell which direction sound is coming from, so I just have to kind of like monitor everyone at once, and it's just, you know, it's hard because like those things are seen as like leisure activities, and you do them because you want to relax, but
Yeah.
it's like more so work for me, and it's just exhausting to have to, you know, ask people to repeat things that way. I'm sure you relate.
Yeah. If I'm having to watch too many people around a table have a conversation and people speak very quickly and they speak over each other, and so you're just like, I find myself exhausted at the end of the day.
Right, I'm the same. And I think it leads back to, honestly, because we come from hearing families, we weren't ever taught how to navigate our disability growing up. Like, even if we were around other disabled folks, I feel like some some tips about navigating disability could be helpful across the board for anyone who has them. But I know a bunch of my deaf friends who come from deaf families, and they were just ingrained, like they knew how to advocate for themselves. So that's why I think it's like important that we connect, even because knowing someone else's situation and what they do, like we can swap tips and just learn from each other.
Yeah, for sure. Well, one of my tips is just I stay in.
Yeah.
I stay in the house.
This is same. I prefer
Yeah.
Netflix and chill.
I agree.
But,
I agree.
But I think one of my goals for 2020 is figuring out how to navigate that so I can go with her. Because I wish, especially being young, I feel like I want to go out more. I want to experience, like, my 20s, whatever that is. And I just, that's part of why I wanted to have a conversation with you and just other deaf and hard of hearing people in general and figure it out. But I do think it's important to acknowledge when you feel jealousy about being with an able-bodied person and understanding when to not project onto them, because like they're the people you care most about and that you love. Like you should acknowledge your emotions, and if you feel jealousy, which I sometimes personally do, I just throw it into my art, which is something else I can be more expressive in like a healthy way.
Yeah. So what are some tips for people who are friends with someone who is deaf or hard of hearing?
Oh my gosh.
Some things they could do to be more accommodating.
Yes. Please don't over-enunciate your words or talk to us like this, because this makes your lips move much differently.
Yeah.
It makes it like actually a lot harder. Also, like you just said, like all deaf people are different. Asking, just like in a polite way, please just ask us like our preferences, and like you'll get it right on the bat.
Yeah.
So that writing things down, making sure we can see your lips, like your boyfriend, don't turn around and talk to us. Make sure that, like, if you're speaking to us, always face us. And you're gonna slip up. This is gonna happen.
Yeah.
Just make sure that you are more conscious of it.
And when suggesting somewhere to go, out for dinner, find somewhere quiet.
Yes.
Because otherwise it's just a battle
I agree.
for the friend.
It's very tiring.
Yeah.
Also, if you are ever watching a film with them, honestly, one of like the best things is if someone puts on the captions without me asking them to. It's just this like little gesture to show that they're conscious of it and that they care about me. And honestly, like there's only been a handful of times people in my life have done that for me without asking, without knowing me well, and I'm just like always shook by how like conscious these people are and how empathetic they are.
And something I'm trying to do more of, and the more technology there is, the easier I find this, is that when I put anything out into social media, however big or small your following is, use captions.
Yes.
It makes such a difference. Sometimes I have to do a long rant and there isn't an app for that rant.
Yes.
And kind people will transcribe it for me.
No way.
Yeah, because I'm so busy, but sometimes I will transcribe it myself. But that is something that I've got to become better at. It's something that we are very aware of at iWay, and we want to make sure that everyone starts to do that, because there are so many people in the world who would benefit from hearing what everyone has to say. Maybe not everyone.
Right.
But a lot of people on the internet. And so I
Yes.
think, can you tell me some good caption apps?
Yes, actually, Clip-O-Matic is this app that you have to film your videos inside of the app, but it will like live transcribe, and sometimes it will have slip-ups, but you can go back and like fix those. So if you ever want to rant, Clip-O-Matic. This website called rev.com, rev.com, it captions $1 per minute. I think they just upped their price to $1.25, but $1 per minute, and they get it back to you in like 24 hours, which is incredible. And then a lot of times I'll just use Adobe Premiere.
Okay. What about this app that you use when you're talking to people on the phone?
Right. So one of my good friends, Oliver, who also is deaf, happened to tell me about this deaf-owned business called Convo, Convo. And basically, it's a way that if you know sign language is very helpful, because let's say I called you, I would see an interpreter pop up on my screen, and you would talk to them and they would sign whatever you said to me, and then I could either sign back and they could voice what I signed, or I could speak and you'd hear me speak and they would sign what you said. Did that make sense?
Yes, and
Okay.
Is there a bit of a delay?
A bit, but I don't think it's very noticeable at all. I mean, it's all just...
Amazing.
Yeah.
This is an incredible app.
Yeah.
I'm so excited that people know about that now.
Yeah.
Okay, so thank you for all of that information. I now would love to talk to you about your transition.
Yes.
So how old were you when you started to transitioning from what you were born as versus...
So I always say I was always non-binary, and I
Yes.
was assigned female at birth. But in terms of the medical transition, one thing I would like to say is you don't need to medically transition to be trans. But when I started testosterone and the process to get top surgery, I was 18. I was 18. And it's been, oh my God, it's been 3 years. Yeah.
So how old were you when you knew you wanted to have transitional surgery?
I always knew that I was trans. I just never had the language to explain myself. But when I gained that language after moving to New York, because I grew up in a very small town in central Pennsylvania, there was just no diversity, no dialogue, no visible queer people. I'm sure there were queer people around me, but
You're already Chinese American and Jewish.
yes.
And deaf.
Yeah.
And so
Yeah.
then-
I had a bit of a clash growing up there, but I kind of realized when I was like 17 and a half, I started piecing it together simply because I found the language. But I'd always known this, but it gave me a way to articulate what I was feeling inside. And after that, it just becomes something that like you can only think about that. I couldn't sleep. My dysphoria, my gender dysphoria would just flare because I like knew what it was. And when I knew what it was, it would just intensify. So like I couldn't sleep. I would just be scrolling, like reading all these queer sites, looking at the trans hashtags. Like I was just like I knew who I was finally, and I just couldn't stop thinking about it, and I knew I had to instigate something.
And your parents were supportive?
My parents, I always say I've won like the family lottery because they were concerned about the medical issues, them being doctors, but they were willing to hear me out. They said the usual, are you sure this is what you want? Are you sure it's not a phase growing up? Things like that. But, they understand now. I think the biggest important thing is like we held open conversations and they were willing to do that and receptive of that, which is a privilege that I'll always cherish.
Yeah, that's amazing. And so you were 18 when you...
When I started testosterone, and then the process...
Is that something you take in pill form?
I take
injections?
injection weekly, which is different for a lot of people, but for me. And then I started the process to get top surgery, which for many people, it can take years and years.
And what is top surgery?
Top surgery is when I like to say, like, it just removed my chest because I don't like referring to it as whatever. So it's what it is, and I got...
To achieve the chest shape that you wanted.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yes. And then, so I was on T for 6 months, and then I got
Testosterone.
top surgery. T is testosterone.
Yeah. I'm just letting for people
Yes,
who don't know.
right.
Right, yeah. Okay, cool. And so then that surgery is something that I can still see the scars of in all
Right,
of your
so-
pictures. And I love that you don't Photoshop those scars.
Yes, yeah.
And you were just telling me earlier that you're upset that the scars are starting to fade.
Yeah, I mean, I feel like they're such an important part of me. I see them as a trophy, And actually, when I just gotten the surgery, they gave me all this scar away cream, but I've never used it because I was like, these are so special to me. It's also a huge privilege to be able to showcase your scars because in a lot of areas, it's not safe to do so. So because I'm in New York City where I can show off my scars and in a safe environment to do so, I absolutely want to. Like, honestly, I've always considered my top surgery scars to be like the last tattoo I'd ever get. I just feel like it completed me, and it's something that I knew would happen after I decided to do this surgery. Just like how when you get a tattoo, you decide to do it and get it. I just feel like they're a tattoo.
Have you ever gone through any shame with any of these things, with disability or being non-binary or genderqueer or transgender? Have you ever experienced shame and problems?
Absolutely. I'm still, I counter I feel like I combat that by finding my community and finding representation, like having this conversation, knowing like someone else related to me and like you understand what it's like to feel so overwhelmed, like just going out to eat. Like I'd feel less shameful because I just know it's such a typical, normal thing to feel. And it's also empowering that, even though that we face a lot of hardships, we have grown so much because of it. Like we were just saying, we watch body language like throughout our lives, and now like I feel like that helps our acting. Like certain things you just have, and other people don't. So
I think it makes me a good judge of character, being able to read someone
right, exactly,
without
yeah,
having to listen to what they say.
yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
You're just very in tune visually.
Yeah,
Yeah,
I think that's great. And how do you navigate that shame?
navigate. Honestly, talking about it, I realized after repressing my gender, after repressing my deafness, it does no good. And if you're privileged enough to be in an environment where you can talk about these things without your safety being compromised, do so. It just, I just feel like I carried a weight for so long, and I'm like free now.
That's amazing.
Yeah,
And is that why you speak so openly about it?
absolutely.
To
Yeah.
encourage other people to also shed their shame by talking about it?
That as well, but also just I want people to know there's other people out there and there's a community for them, especially because like we're both on the spectrum. We don't fit into the stereotype of being deaf, nonverbal, and signing, and I don't fit into the stereotype of the binary with my gender, sexuality, and pansexual. It's just like I need people to know that you don't have to be either or. There's this whole continuum, and you can find representation within that.
I almost sometimes feel like boxes of male and female and straight and whatever are almost for consumerism. It's like so we can target someone to sell something specifically at. I
Yeah.
think there are many reasons. I think there's also patriarchy and oppression and all of these different things. But I sometimes just can't understand all of the boxes and divisions that we're forced into. And I love the fact that you identify in so many different intersectional spaces. Can I ask you an ignorant question that I think a lot of people maybe sometimes don't understand?
Shoot.
So you say that you were born non-binary.
Yes.
How does a non-binary person also identify as transgender?
Okay.
Do you know what I mean?
Yes.
Because
So,
if you are not identifying as a gender, how can you change from one gender to another? I'm not challenging you at all. I just want to
Right.
understand
No.
so that I know how to explain it properly to other people.
thank you for asking politely. This is good, open conversation that we
Okay.
need. So, how I see it is transgender is this umbrella term.
Right.
Under it, there is non-binary, gender non-conforming,
Genderqueer is also...
genderqueer, trans man, trans woman, so many different things. And honestly, it's up to every individual because I know some non-binary people who don't like to identify as trans. And I know some, yeah, so I mean, it's just how
As in a non-binary person who is also transgender wouldn't like to be identified as trans, because non-binary, is that necessarily trans?
So I see non-binary as being a term under the umbrella of trans.
Okay.
So I identify non-binary and trans.
Okay.
But some people don't, which is valid. It's just whatever words you connect with. Like you were just saying about labels and boxes, like language can be incredible because it can connect us with community, but at the same time it can be so limiting because it can confine you into whatever that definition is, especially if there's people in that community who are gatekeeping.
How has dating been for you as a person who is trans and non-binary?
Man, I got lucky. Like, I just found this girl. Her name is Mary V. At this classic college party in Bushwick, Brooklyn, first year of college, like when I was 17 years old, and
And this was pre-transition?
pre-transition. So, I mean, I didn't even at the time realize that I would identify as transgender. But I saw her and I knew, like, I was like, Chella, you cannot leave this party without asking this girl out. You will regret that for the rest of your life. And so I did. And of course, her at the time actually identifying straight thought I was just this girl who was asking her to hang out. This is like across the board queer problem. But I mean, fast forward, it's been, I've gotten so lucky. She has learned sign language for me. She has been by my side throughout the surgeries, top surgery and cochlear implant surgery, watched me take my first testosterone shot. Not only watched my transition, but as a photographer, she's documented it all. So I now have this just archive of information and like resources I can share with people, and just like I just got so lucky. So dating has been incredible, which usually isn't the case for someone with all the identities I claim, but it's been amazing.
You lucky bastard.
I'm lucky, yeah.
You lucky little bastard.
This is true.
Can I ask you to tell me what advice you would have to parents who have a child who isn't comfortable in the binary that they've been assigned?
Educate yourself. There's so many resources out there. There's so many queer sites.
What are some good queer sites for those parents?
Them.com, them.us has articles written by queer people for queer people. Out Magazine is also another one. Interviews like this, certainly just searching certain terminology and seeing, like, adding the word resource after it. Like, there's just so much out there. Besides that, because different experiences can be so personalized, having a queer person come in and talk to your kid, because you never really know what a person is going through, and reading articles can be extremely helpful, but to have someone on a personal level just sit down with them one-on-one and have like a chat about what they're feeling can just change their life.
You had therapy?
Yes.
Do you still have therapy?
I do, yeah.
Do you think that that's a very important thing for parents to allow their children to access? If you have the privilege to be able to access therapy?
Yes, I also think that it is important to find a therapist who mirrors the identities your child may have, or even just, I mean, this is very biased, but I think queer therapists of color are some of the best therapists, because I feel like when you identify queer or as a person of color, you have just had to unpack and dismantle so many different systems in our lives. You just really understand lots of things about how the way the world works that a lot of other able-bodied or that a lot of straight cisgender people, white, may not understand.
For sure. Where do people find you?
Where do people find
Where
me?
can we find you?
Where do you find me?
What's your YouTube channel?
My YouTube channel is my name, Chella Man, CHELLA space MAN, and Instagram, my name, my art Instagram, my name plus art.
Yeah. And Twitter, where I love you.
Yes, Chella Man art. Yeah.
I can't believe you're 21. Makes me really angry.
Why?
Because you're so ahead of the game of where I was when I
What?
was your age. Because you got to grow up on the internet.
This is true.
You had so much more information than
Okay.
I had, and so I'm jealous of that.
Okay, this is valid.
Yeah.
That's fair.
And I love that you're out here in the world, just so openly explaining to everyone how you feel and what it is that you're going through. And I know personally so many people who draw inspiration from you, and I really appreciate your advocacy, not just for yourself, but also for other people who don't share your exact same struggles, but who exist within the disabled space or the genderqueer space or the queer space, full stop.
Thank you.
I really appreciate you, and thank you for coming to talk to me today.
Thank you so much. I mean, I could say all those things about you, so like it's been an honor. Thank you so much for having me.
It's been really fun.
Yeah.